Hello, I'm Dr. Lisa Colledge. Welcome to Culture by Neurodesign. Well, today we're diving into a real scenario, and it's one that may be playing out in your team right now. I'm going to discuss a real example of a team that's blocked from producing their top performance when they need to meet a deadline. And the impact isn't only on performance either. It's having an increasingly negative impact in non-deadline situations and also in personal time, because the emotional fallout is lingering long after that deadline has passed. So what's at the center of it? Well, it's a dynamic that you might recognize. The team lead is passionate and deeply committed, but her style is always to work right up to each and every deadline. She constantly demands quick replies from her team, and she sends messages late at night, and she requests last-minute tasks. She expects people to jump in and help her pull things together just in time for that deadline. And this team lead enjoys working this way, right? It gives her energy and buzz. It's deeply satisfying to her, and it's how she feels most effective. So I'm not saying this style is wrong. That is how she gets the best from herself, to work with urgency and against a deadline. It's not her individual style that is the challenge. The challenge is not even that the team lead chooses to ask the team to contribute to the work needed for the meeting at the last minute. If everyone in the team worked that way and they enjoyed working that way, I wouldn't be here talking about it. It wouldn't be a problem. It would be the most fun way of working that the team could possibly imagine, and they would look forward to it. But the problem is that the rest of the team doesn't thrive in this approach. It's quite the opposite, right? They find it incredibly stressful and baffling, because this can be planned. These particular deadlines are always known well in advance, because they involve a visit to a customer who doesn't plan something like this for today or tomorrow. There's always several days or even weeks notice. And yet they're not planned for by the team lead, because they enjoy the last minute thrill. So the team members don't feel seen, and they don't feel respected in their own working styles. They feel really under pressure. Some of them cancel personal plans or skip breaks because they anticipate that things are going to ramp up. And messages start flying around. Some of them are urgent, some of them are unclear. A few people switch off notifications so they can stay focused, which of course just increases the amount of messages flying around as people try to get attention from each other. And others try and keep up and end up bouncing between tasks without really knowing what's expected of them, because things are not always clear. So of course, in this state, the team is unable to produce their best work, and they feel anxious. They take that anxiety home. They struggle to relax in the evenings, and it becomes personal. So why did I hear about this team? Well, that is because the team members believe their team lead has ADHD. So they describe this situation with comments like, "She's chaotic, she doesn't respect her time, it's exhausting, she's so ADHD." Yes, these behaviours are consistent with known ADHD traits: working in bursts, high urgency, low planning, impulsive task requests. Now, if you want to hear more about ADHD traits and how they can be beneficial in some circumstances, please listen to episode 17 of this podcast. But to stay with this example, the team lead hasn't disclosed anything. Maybe she has ADHD, maybe not. Perhaps she knows that she has ADHD and perhaps she doesn't. Maybe she's waiting for a diagnosis. Maybe she has a diagnosis but doesn't want to disclose. That's her business. She doesn't have to share it with her team unless she chooses to. But the situation I've described is everybody's business, regardless of the cause. And that's what we're going to focus on for the rest of this podcast. We're going to take guidance from knowledge about ADHD and from other neurostyles, but whether or not the team lead has ADHD doesn't matter in how we solve it. So now we come on to the model, the framework with which we can tackle this problem. Now, traditional inclusion approaches don't help here. Traditional approach is a disclosure-based system where someone has to get a diagnosis, declare their diagnosis, and then request support from their manager. So why doesn't this work here? Well, one reason is that in this case, the person who you need to disclose to is the manager, but the people affected are in her team. They're her direct reports. They're not in her manager's team, of which she is a team member. A second reason is that there's already frustration and resentment in the team at having had to work in this way for so long. So if the team is expected to continue to accommodate their team lead's behavior because she has ADHD and a diagnosis to prove it, that is simply going to worsen the situation for everyone and likely also create a lot of negative sentiment towards neurodivergence and perhaps create stigma where there may not have been any before. So that's exactly the opposite of the impact that I want to have for organisations I'm working with and for society. Now, I discussed this with a UK employment law expert, and to quote, he told me that typical tick-the-box approach we see in so many businesses where people only get support if they declare a diagnosis and go through layers of forms just doesn't work anymore. It's reactive, it's rigid, and it actually leaves a lot of people behind. End of quote. Now, in this case, ADHD is a red herring. It's a distraction from the real work of finding a sustainable solution. As I said, knowledge of ADHD and other neurostyles can guide us. Understanding ADHD traits can help us to think more creatively and empathetically about what might be driving certain behaviours, but the answer isn't going to be found in asking the team lead, do you have ADHD? Or what should we do about your diagnosis? Or how does the whole team accommodate your needs? Instead, the answer lies in the team noticing the friction and responding in a way for which they all share accountability. That means everyone. It's about building something that works better for everyone, the team lead and the team members. So I've shown you the traditional accommodations-based model breaks down in a situation, and there are many other situations where it breaks down too. I'll include a link to an article where I describe more about this in the episode notes. But those breakdowns are why I developed my alternative cultural approach. So that assumes that diverse neurostyles are present. It anticipates that even as the team lead loves the scramble to a deadline, other team members won't. It's a fact. It's inevitable that you have lots of different neurostyles in your team. And my cultural approach builds the capability for teams to use these moments, these frictions, to their advantage so that they can become their competitive edge. Let's walk through what this looks like in the context of this real example. And the team lead thrives in rapid bursts. She's energized by urgency. She may genuinely feel most creative and most productive right up against a deadline, and she assumes that her team will get it. She doesn't understand how difficult, how anxiety-inducing it can be to work in this way when it's not your natural style. But notice here that she believes in her team, right? She trusts that they'll meet her in her way to achieve the deadline. She knows that they will deliver. Her belief is strong and it's positive, and that's something to notice. But it's unrealistic because the team can't do it without cost. Some prefer to plan, some prefer to work in structured, paced chunks. Some are exhausted by the last-minute pings and the constant Slack comments. Some are finding the context-free messages and all the emojis overwhelming, and some have caregiving responsibilities or are in different time zones, which makes it difficult for them to always respond as they may wish. There's difference, it's causing friction. And my expertise and my framework enables teams to learn how to connect across differences like this. So, the cultural approach. Instead of putting the burden on one person or relying on disclosure, we make this a shared, team-led process. We assume difference exists and we design for it. We create team norms based on observable working styles, not on diagnosis of neurodivergence. We're going to start by making the invisible visible and by removing assumptions. We bring the team together and we explore working preferences using my Neurostyle Navigator. Now, I'm not going to go into huge detail about it, but to give you an idea, we discuss spectrums of behaviour that are relevant to the situation and informed by ADHD, but not specific to the conflict situation and not specific to ADHD because the emotions are too high in that case. And we want everybody to be able to speak to their underlying styles. So, for example, people indicate where they are on a spectrum between I prefer to reflect and respond later versus I prefer to respond in the moment. Other good examples are I get focused under pressure versus deadlines make me anxious. And a third one, I like working things out through discussion versus I like to process quietly before I speak. So discussing these three statements and where people sit on these three spectra would be enough to surface the differences in how each team member works best in a deadline-like situation in an equal way without labeling anyone. And from there, the team cooperates in creating an operating model. From there, the team co-creates an operating model, and that's where the FIT model that I've developed comes in. It stands for fair, intentional, and team-minded. So everyone adapts a little bit, and no one is asked to stretch endlessly. Let's apply that FIT model. What's a fair, intentional, team-minded way to handle this deadline chaos? Well, there's no single right answer, right? It depends on the team. Every team has different people in it with different neurostyles or varied nationalities and experiences working in different functions and industries. But here's a worked example to illustrate how that cultural approach works. So the team might agree to start work on each customer deadline earlier to plan. They agree to introduce a phase timeline. So the team lead asks everyone to submit their contributions 3 working days before the final deadline. And she resists sending out urgent messages until this point. The team lead then reviews and assembles everything. And now we come to the 2 days before the meeting when she's in her high energy zone. Now the team, having had a calmer run up to this point, the team agrees to enable the team lead to work in her preferred style for those 2 days, knowing that she works best this way, knowing that that's how they're going to provide their best value to the customer. And during this phase, the team agrees to a 2-hour turnaround on clarifications or requests for extra information from the team lead. And the team lead commits to only sharing her request via email with a clear subject line, so the team doesn't need to monitor multiple channels, just email. Team agrees to mute Slack during these 2 days for their team discussions so that they reduce distraction and anxiety caused by needing to monitor multiple channels. And after the customer meeting, the team lead shares the final product that she presented with the team, and she runs a short debrief to explain how things went. This is really critical to build a shared sense of achievement, of course, but also because in this meeting, the team want to revisit this process I've described and decide whether they want to tweak anything to try to improve the process for next time. Now notice what this cultural approach achieves. Everyone gives a little, everyone gets something, and no one has to declare anything personal. I haven't talked about ADHD at all in finding this solution with the team. We've been guided by insights that we learned from ADHD and from other neurodivergences. And we've solved for ADHD, if ADHD it in fact is, and for every other neurostyle in the room. Now that's why I call my service neuro-inspired teams. You can see now where the neuro-inspired comes from. And I emphasize teams because the team has been shown to be the unit of organizational success, not the individual. So we can't succeed by making one person the problem. We need to see the team as the problem and make the team the solution. So here's another quote from that same employment law expert. Loved your angle on shared responsibility. Inclusion shouldn't be all on the person asking for adjustments. In fact, the most effective teams I see are the ones that make inclusive practice as part of how they operate day to day. End of quote. And I'll just say exactly, the team becomes the unit of success. The team has to be involved in a solution. That's fit, fair, intentional, and team-minded. And something else to notice about this model is that it scales, because once a team has learned how to do this in one area, deadlines in this case, they can use the same approach for meetings, for communication, workload, recognition, and the processes that are core to their work. It becomes muscle memory. And when a new person joins the team knows how to flex their norms and adapt. This capability is portable too. This is the last quote from that same lawyer who told me, "I particularly liked your point around inclusion being portable. A neurodivergent employee might have a great experience in one team and then feel completely unsupported when they move teams. That inconsistency not only impacts well-being, but from a legal perspective, it opens the door to potential discrimination issues too." But the cultural approach that I've described, as well as being scalable, is portable, and so it can be sustained within an organization. So if the team you're in experiences tension whenever there is an urgent situation, here's the takeaway that I'd like you to think about. You don't need a diagnosis to design for the difference, and you don't need permission to start. You just need to stop assuming that friction means one person is a point of failure and start using that friction as a prompt to build something better. Now imagine the peace of mind that was brought to everyone in this team that I've been describing. The clarity, the confidence to say yes to a deadline, to know that it won't derail your week in your evenings, the ability to go home and enjoy your evening without feeling anxious. And imagine the team lead as well, more informed, more supported, even better able to deliver value on behalf of her team, who she has such belief in, to the client. Imagine a team that grows stronger through that challenge, not more fractured. A team that builds a competitive advantage from it. If you recognize this situation, please do book a free consultation with me. We'll talk about what you're experiencing, we'll diagnose root causes, and we'll see how building a neuro-inclusive team will benefit the engagement, the wellness, and the performance of your team. You'll find the link in the episode notes, and you can also find it on my website on the Let's Connect page. But thank you for listening. If this episode resonated, please share it. Every conversation helps to create a future-ready culture, and one that doesn't just survive deadline week, but thrives through it.